Hello, dear friends. Welcome to another study of the Spiritist magazine here at Kardec Radio. It's always an honor and a blessing to be with you. And today, we're going to be discussing an article for one of the issues of the Spiritist magazine. In this case, issue 47, which is all dedicated to women in the Spiritism. It's a beautiful way for you and I to recognize the efforts of women in their contribution to the Spiritist doctrine. So we recommend that everybody goes and downloads the issue and read the beautiful stories in there. And we always talk about how can you find the Spiritist magazine. If you visit spiritistmagazine.org, you will find a link to the app that we showed last week. You'll find a link to download the PDF version of the Spiritist magazine. You're going to find also a link to order a physical copy of the Spiritist magazine. Many ways you and I can take advantage of the teachings. And remember, this is always a 100% volunteer endeavor. All of us here, from the editors to the authors and to the writers and the translators and the revisions and everybody, we all here donating our time so that we can all benefit from the consoling words of the good spirits. So we hope that you will enjoy the content. We hope that you can use the content in your daily lives. Without further ado, issue 47, and this article is from, or I should say by, these articles from issue 47 by the Spirit Emmanuel through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier, from a book that is not yet translated in English called Siga-me, which would be Follow Me. So another reason for you and I to be attuned to the Spiritist magazine, because there we'll find many issues, many discussions, many articles where there is a ton of information first time in the English language, crossing barriers, crossing boundaries, spreading the good news of Jesus everywhere. So here you have this article is titled Compliment and Criticism. So let's see what Emmanuel tells us about compliments we receive and what to do with them, and also what to do with the criticism we may have. The article starts with a Bible quote from James chapter 1 verse 17. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. So everything that you and I have, is given to us by God. Isn't that a wonderful reminder for tonight? As we're broadcasting this to you on Tuesdays evenings, that's usually when we come out and share the good news with you. And here are Emmanuel's comments on this verse of the Bible, the New Testament. If the sun depended on human approval to nourish the life that gravitates around it, certainly it would long ago be reduced to a pile of ashes. Have you thought about the fact that the sun shines every day, independent of if we're noticing it, independent of any of our actions, thoughts, and ideas? And he's saying here, if the sun depended on our approval, a long time ago it wouldn't exist, right? So we need to cherish the sun that gives us life. He will continue by saying, if the earth suffered from the censures that are constantly made by those who categorize it as a valley of tears, it would have already descended to the condition of cemetery in space. So also the earth, Mother Earth, that the opportunity to be incarnated, who has the earth that has the conditions that you and I need to have the physical body that we have to experience the things we need to in order to grow, also receives criticism as much as the sun. He will say, if the seed rejected the solitude and death to which it's relegated in the soil in order to collaborate with the sustenance of the world, the creatures would have been for a while without the blessing of the bread. Remember, each and every time you put a little seed on the soil, it has all the components to become a tree. When we seed the seeds of good news, when we sow the seeds of good news all around the world, all around our homes, all around ourselves, we also have the potential to develop so much goodness in our lives. But before the seed can give us the blessing of the grains, the blessing of the bread, ultimately, the seed needs to go through solitude and death. But if the seed said, no, I don't want to go through solitude and death in the soil, because first the seed has to go down into the darkness. The soil doesn't have light necessarily, but there in the soil, the seed will have the nutrients and the nourishment removed from the soil. It grows trees, it goes roots down, and then it's able to emerge to look for the light of the sun with its formation of its first leaves, the photosynthesis, so on and so forth. But if the seed said, no, no, I don't want to be alone, we wouldn't have the bread that we have now. So we're talking about the sun shining each and every day in our lives, regardless of how we think of it, performing the way it is without being affected by our criticism, the earth not suffering from the censures that you and I impose into it, thinking of it only as a place of suffering. Yet, the sufferings and the pains we go through are what we need in order to grow. That doesn't make it less painful or less suffering, doesn't make it easier, but it's a true reality that what we're going through today, individually and collectively, is a result not only of our actions in the past. If we could make an equation, would be our actions in the past plus the things we need to learn, multiply by the grace of God equals today. It would be very good for us to think of these as an opportunity, this lifetime, this opportunity for nourishing our souls together here at Kardec Radio as opportunities of growth. Emmanuel will continue by saying, if the spring refused the incessant and permanent regime change in which it is called to serve, life organized on the earth would be confined to primitivism and stagnation. The spring that comes down through the valleys and the mountains, it carries the nutrients from those places, it carves rivers and ultimately reaches the sea. And it will also be the opportunity for us to take the nourishment of the water, to grow crops, to nourish forests and animals, and make our settlements. So if the spring refused this regime of change, we wouldn't be able to progress as much. If the tree would only produce under applause, the fruit would not bless humanity's table. So the trees that you and I grow in order to have the nourishment of physical bodies that we need in order to exist on this planet, if they only produced, if we were there clapping, we wouldn't have their fruits in our tables. So are we letting what other people think of us? Are we waiting for people to bless and cheer what we do in order to continue to do the good? That's the reflection we wrote down for today. Those are some of the things that may come to mind as you read these messages. Remember, all the gifts that we have come from above. That was the start of this article with James, chapter 1, verse 17. Yet the sun continues to shine, doing its job. The earth continues to nourish and receive us. The spring continues to come downhill in order to nourish where it passes forming new landscapes, nourishing and breathing light everywhere he goes. And the tree is producing the fruit, regardless if you're there to applaud it or not. So we should be keep doing the good, do the good, do the good, and not look for the likes, the numbers, the views, so on and so forth. It's always good to have those things as affirmations, but we shouldn't do just the good just because of that. Now is the call to action by Emmanuel. Workers of the truth and the good, let us reflect on the simple lessons of nature and let's work. Observe nature and all of its creations, question and answers. Question 4 and answer from the Spirit book, where in nature we can find the proofs of existence of God. He's saying, let us reflect on those simple lessons. Nature goes on with its activities, its diligence, its discipline, its cycles, just as you and I have cycles in our lives, and it keeps going. Trusting in the divine providence, fulfilling its role in the grand scheme of Earth's life, and they're doing the best. They're doing their job, irrespective if they're receiving compliments or criticism. Give thanks to the compliment that strengthens you for the fulfillment of the natural obligations of the world, and enjoy with resignation the warning that criticism gives us. So when you and I are working, we're here together right now, reading this message together, bringing some of the reflections of this chapter, and that's why we encourage everyone to download the copy, to download the article and read it and come up with our own conclusions. He's saying, give thanks to the compliment. So if you see someone doing the works of truth and good, go and compliment them. Not to boost their ego, massage their ego. Compliment them, encourage them to continue to do it because they are fulfilling the natural obligations of the world. If we are entrusted with these teachings, we need to go and be courageous to spend half an hour together reading the Bible, reading the Spiritist works, not going to the party, not going to the bar, not going to have fun, quote unquote fun. We really need to, because it may be a natural obligation, something you and I signed up on with our reincarnatory plan. So let's give thanks when someone compliments what we do without appealing to our vanity. I wanted just doing to get the compliment. Because there's a lot of people who only do, and their self-worth is on the compliments, on the likes, the follows, the subscribes. So we need to give thanks to the people who compliment us, because that compliment is the encouragement, the strength we need to continue to doing the good. But we need to enjoy with resignation the warning that criticism gives you. If you go back to the Medium's book, you're going to see that there Kardec will say, the spirits are just human beings that left the flesh. So Kardec argues that when you receive a message from a spirit, we need to analyze its language. We don't just take the word of the spirit because it's signed the beautiful name. We analyze the lessons within that message. And as a medium, if you're a medium, or if you know of a medium, you read and you think, is this good, is not good, who may be talking through, is it coherent with the message of Christ to be called upon of being of a spirit, so on and so forth. Those are regular criticism that we need to do when reading these messages. If a message like this calls us to war, of course, if it's signed by someone, it claims to be signed by Emmanuel, we're going to question it, because the good spirit does not call us to fighting and wars. But if the message is of goodness, this message is very coherent with all of the other works of Emmanuel, then we compliment him and we thank him for bringing to us these teachings. In our daily lives, when we are doing the works of the good, just as a medium needs to be open to criticism, because fascination can take up um, hold on the medium's heart, and that can open up to many other problems when the medium thinks that he or she is only the only bearer of good news. They're the only ones who get the good spirits to tell them what to do. All the other mediums are wrong. All the works on the other spiritist centers are not as worthy. Then we need to be open to go to them and say, hey, let's look at this. This is not coherent with Christ's message. The same way, when we're doing something in the good, we are organizing classes for children. We're meeting together in a park. We are volunteering to clean up the neighborhoods. When we receive a criticism, we need, Emmanuel is saying, enjoy with resignation the warning, because sometimes the criticism has a valid basis. If we're not open to criticism, we think everything we do is awesome, everything we do is great, there is a different problem altogether. So we should have a balance. The good spirits always call us to moderation. We take the compliment because it strengthens us so we can continue the good work, but also we if someone is criticizing us, we will listen to it and take what is best out of the criticism. Not the mean criticism just putting us down because maybe they're jealous, they can't do the work. They would like to do the work but can't do the work. And we encourage them when we pray for them when they're criticizing us. And we say, okay, may God guide you. May the good spirits be with you so that you can also do the works of the good, right? Easy? No, otherwise these good spirits wouldn't have to come and bring to us these teachings, right? And last but not least, he's going to say, Emmanuel will say, however, if we need praises to work, if admonition paralyzes the faculties of service, we are still far from understanding the treasure of opportunities for improvement and elevation that enriches our ways. Since, above all, the blessings that comfort us, the light that illuminate our road, the strength that sustain us, and the support that hold us always come from on high and proceed originally and only from God. So if we need to have the compliments and the patting on the shoulder. I'm not saying that's bad to receive compliments. Remember, we talked about take the criticism, take the compliments because they strengthen us, and analyze the criticism because maybe they're telling us something that is valid. But if we only work when we have praises, we only work when people recognize how great we are, if we only work when we are able to boast about our numbers and our ears and our workers, he's saying here, if when someone criticizes us, that paralyzes us, we stop doing the work because someone said something we didn't agree with. Because after all, they were there to, in our mind, they were there to just say, you're great. And when they don't, that we stop working. Emmanuel says we're still far from understanding the treasures of opportunities for improvement. So there's so much more that we can do. All the blessings that comfort us in our physical, even in our physical life, because the material world was created by God, and the material world is here for us to improve it, to evolve, to create things that make the lives of all of human beings better, to work on our intellect and our spiritual joys as well, all the blessings, the light that illuminate the road, the physical light that someone created that can pass through electricity and we can see where we are going, to the light that shines within our hearts when we study the teachings of Christ, for example. The strength that supports us, and the support that holds us always, always, always comes from God. Divine providence is God's care for all creatures, and divine providence is emanating love and goodness all the time. So it's up to us to tap in, to attune to those vibrations of goodness everywhere we go, and to spread the good, to mold the good, to visualize the good, to feel the good, and to do as much good as possible all the time, everywhere, with everyone. Dear friends, this message is from the book Segue Me, Follow Me by Emmanuel, through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier. You can find it on issue 47 of the Spiritist magazine that is totally dedicated to women in Spiritism. It's always an honor and a blessing to be with you. And that's all we had for today. So many, many wishes of health. I hope that you stay well, that you stay safe. And until next week, I shall be back with you, God willing, next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, many, many blessings. Have a great night, dear friends.